What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Data with Peachey podcast. It has been a minute since I have been on this podcast. Big things were happening in life, big positive things, of course, which is great. But it obviously kind of had to supersede the Data with Peachey podcast because, again, life sometimes get in the way. Family, kids, career, it's complete chaos at times. So apologies for not putting out new content recently. If you were following me on LinkedIn, you'll notice that I do have a new logo and things like that, but that's about the extent that I've been trying to do anything related to this podcast. But today that changes. Today we are back. We are going to be talking about something that a friend of mine posted on LinkedIn just a few days ago. Now, if you're watching this way in the future, it is more than a few days ago for you. But Tom Marlowe had mentioned something on LinkedIn that sparked my interest. And I promise you that I'm going to relate this back to data governance and data management because that's just what I do, because I love data governance and data management because I'm a big nerd like that. Tom put out a interesting post, and it was a different perspective from Monica Caldas, and apologies if I completely butchered that name. She's an EVP Global Information Officer. She had talked about the AI inflection point being here, and while it's already in your pocket. Effectively, what she's kind of talking about is how we use AI every day. Now, Tom then doubled down on that and talked about his quote unquote everyday AI. His win isn't just one moment, it's like thousands of small moments that kind of culminate into one big thing. And I started to think about it. What was my everyday AI? And as you know, on this particular podcast, I talk a lot about governance management, AI, especially, and then also data literacy. Data literacy, data awareness, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes data literacy has a negative connotation. I don't mean it from a negative connotation perspective. I literally just mean kind of awareness of how data works within the business. And so I started down this path of thinking, what was my everyday AI? And how does it relate to data management and data governance and data literacy and data awareness? And then it hit me. I can't tell you how many times I use Gemini, ChatGPT, not so much Perplexity, because I know it's in the news a lot lately about wanting to be like the next Google or whatever. But I use GPT, ChatGPT, and then also Gemini to kind of come up with how do I make data governance and data management more approachable from a business user's perspective. You know me, something that's really big and something that always gets me is the idea that sometimes data governance and data management is takes a back seat. Oh, we're only people that only do things related to data governance and its bureaucracy and red tape and regulation and compliance, but you have no way of actually drawing and doing data enablement and making tangible impacts in the business because you're just governance and management. You just manage my data through whatever I need in the business, right? I'm just going to come out and flat out say it. Governance and data management is underappreciated pretty much all the way across the board. And again, I know that we're talking about my everyday AI, but I promise you this is related because what I did is I actually now started to use ChatGPT and I used Google Gemini specifically to say, hey, look, data governance and data management professionals are sometimes some of the most underappreciated individuals in a particular data office or just in the business in general. So if you use ChatGPT or Google Gemini, there are talk live options available out there to you, or you simply could just type this all in. And I had a whole conversation with Gemini and ChatGPT as well, a whole live conversation, might I add. This was all done via audio using their individual live audio options, and then they all show up into your particular either Gemini or GPT field, where I was having a conversation with somebody that arguably could be a data expert because they have the vast knowledge of the internet right at their fingertips. And so I just started to talk to them as though they were a friend of mine, somebody who had been in data a really long time, and say, hey, let's kind of spitball and brainstorm ideas together. And it was literally just a nice casual conversation. Like I started to talk literally live and I said good morning to Gemini and good morning to GPT and started to ask them how they were. And again, it felt different because obviously I know that that's not a real person on the other end of that line that's effectively talking to me like this is a phone call. I started to talk to them and ask them questions like, hey, I've got this idea for a podcast. This one I'm actually recording right now. Hey, what are your thoughts on, the need for a strong governance? And then kind of telling them some of the struggles that I have as a data professional with kind of making sure that I can tell the story in a good observable way for some of our business leaders to make sure that they are able to absorb what I'm saying in a way that's approachable to them. So one of the things from my everyday AI is I'm starting to challenge myself as to how could I utilize this technology a little bit differently. It's one thing, I'm not a coder, so I don't sit down and say, hey, read me this copious lines of code and tell me what this does. All of the AI or the generative AI does a pretty good job of that. Now, disclaimer alert on all of this, of course, is you need to trust but verify. There are hallucinations. There are things that it just straight up makes up. I have situations that I can't talk about here, but there are situations where you will ask it a very specific question and you'll get an answer that you know the answer for sure, but it gives you some answer that is wildly incorrect. And then you start to wonder, how did you get that information? Like where did you go and get that information? Sometimes it messes up basic math. And I know that people are going to point to that and go, oh, you can't trust AI. Can't never do that. Blah, 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 blah. Like, I get it. But the idea is like, this is today's version of the AI that you're getting is the worst version of the AI you're going to get in the future. So it's only going to get better. And what's really interesting to me is I use it as simply a catalyst to brainstorm and spitball ideas from my brain and then go back through and trust and verify and find sources and then read those articles. Again, you have got to do the research on your end, but AI gives you such a springboard platform to throw out a ton of ideas all at once and have something on the back end kind of concatenated and pull it all together for you to come up with something. And that's my everyday AI. Like, of course, it would be nice to have somebody manage my personal calendar and tell me when I need to do things. Of course, that would be nice. Then I don't have to think about the small administrative tasks that we get inundated every single day with. But for me, as a data professional and just a professional in general, it gives me the ability to spitball ideas literally in real time, even if no other professional or no other expert is available. It gives me something that I can kind of latch onto, think about, let it marinate in my brain, and then come up with, would this work for me? Would this work for the team? Would this work for the company? It gives me the ability to do that in a really rapid prototyping type of way. So for me, it's great. I love it. My everyday AI is it makes me a better data professional because it makes me think. Now, again, trust but verify. The idea is these things are merely just a way to get you. You can't just blanketly straight up trust what the AI comes out with today as it is today. But again, today's version of the AI is the worst version of the AI that you're going to use. And so tying this all together back to governance and management, one of the things that I kind of came up with, and everybody's done it, if you're in a data governance or data whatever role that you're in, you talk about how can I make data governance or data management more approachable to somebody who doesn't live in the vernacular that we use every day. And one of those things is, and much to the chagrin of my current boss, is a water treatment plant example. But I don't know if you know this. I only know like this much about water treatment plants. So what did I do? I asked AI in a couple different versions and a couple different companies, hey, how does water treatment plants work? So I was able to ask it how it does those things. And then it gave me an answer that I was like, I have absolutely no idea what any of that means. That is super scientific. I then re-examined my prompt and said, hey, look, can you explain that like I was a middle schooler, just simply because that's way above my head right now. Can you explain that, dumb it down for me, make it like a teenager type thing. And it gave me a great example and something that was very approachable for me, a non-scientist, especially a water scientist. I don't even know what that's called, to understand what how that works from a water treatment plant. And then what did I do? I then re-examined my prompt again. And I said, okay, cool. Now tell me how that relates to data governance and data management. And a couple prompts later, it gave me a wonderful table that, again, trust but verify, that I now have a workable table that if I want to start telling the story of how water treatment plants work and how that's correlated to data management and data governance, I now have a pretty good example that I can at least begin to work off of rather than a blank whiteboard and me aimlessly scrolling, trying to figure out through Google how a water treatment plant works. So I'm actually going to read you the kind of the table, and it's in 7 steps. It's very easy. So again, my everyday AI, I took this and so it gave me this in 10 seconds. It literally said thought for 10 seconds. It gave me this in 10 seconds after a series of prompts that I gave it and said, hey, tell me how this correlates to data management and data governance. The 7 steps from a water treatment plant perspective is collect, screen, coagulate, and flocculate. Don't know what that is. Sediment, filter, disinfect, store, and distribute. Because if you're a data professional, you know, like we've used the water treatment plant as like, hey, you don't, a lot of individuals, and this is obviously not all over the world, but in the United States, you, for the most part, will turn on the tap water, stick your cup under the water, take a drink, and then put the cup down. And you don't think about how the water got there. There is a whole process that goes to this. And I just kind of laid it out there. And it literally laid out for me that you go and collect. It's like a big straw. It literally says a big straw. A huge pipe pulls river water into the water treatment plant. The next one is screening, fishing out the trash. The next one is they put chemicals in to create tiny dirt bits to clump the bigger, nasty things into what they call dirty snowballs. That then goes to the bottom. The flock settles at the bottom. The clear water floats up to the top. They then filter it through sand and carbon and remove the fine particles of debris, gross odors, that type of thing. They then use a germ zapper. They disinfect it. That's step 6. To then use a little bit of UV light or chlorine, again, drinkable levels of chlorine to kill the remaining germs. And then they store that in tanks and then it flows through pipes to homes. Those are the 7 big steps. Now, it actually then goes through and then lays out what happens in data and then the different data management and data quality capabilities in action. So if we go through those same steps, it talks about, hey, it pulls raw data from apps, sensors, spreadsheets, partners, feeding into landing zones or data lakes or data warehouses for some of you. It then goes to step 2, where it specifically talks about, having to kind of fish out the nasty trash. It talks about quality checks, quick quality checks that have blank fields, impossible dates, duplicate rows, junk that gets rejected very early and very easily. Now, those 2 steps, step 1 and step 2, from a data management and data governance capability, ingestion and cataloging, data profiling, and basic validation. All things as data professionals we talk about, first 2 steps in a water treatment plant. 3rd step, where we talk about the coagulate and the flock, the dirty snowballs, is what happens to data? We standardize codes. OH becomes Ohio. We unify time zones. We map nicknames to single customer IDs. So what is that? Reference data, matching, standardization. Again, very specific data vernacular and language that we use, and it resonates with us. But when we say it in an example like the water treatment, where we start to talk about that, that might resonate with the business user. Step 4, letting that sediment, those dirty snowballs, sink to the bottom and the clean water float up to the top. We have clean, standardized records that move on. Suspicious or low quality records drops to the bottom for a human to review. And that's staging and quality gates, using kind of that tiered approach some of us use, is the idea of bronze, silver, gold plus quality scores. Now you can start to understand that data is you got usable now data or needs investigation. Okay. Now you want to filter it one more time. The water drips through the sand. And step 5, the filter. Now we have what happens in data. We have advanced rules catching outliers, 8-digit zip codes, reconciling totals, removing hidden biases, advanced rules, anomaly detection, data observability. That's something that's big in the industry right now. That's going to be through step 5, the fine filter to pull that out. Now we're going to disinfect when it comes to the germ zapper. That's where that little bit of UV light or the chlorine comes in from a water perspective. But then you have privacy, security, and compliance checks to ensure that no PII is being leaked, data is encrypted or masked before its release. Data security, privacy, and certification. Again, you're starting to see where these things come from. And I say all of this, and the last one is store and distribute. Remember, the water's on standby, pumped to the house, ready to go for when you need cold, clean water to either drink or do something with. Then you have some of that certified data landing in the warehouse, the lake house, fully documented in the catalog, ready to serve apps, ready to serve models, ready to serve business dashboards, data marts, whatever you have. Lineage, stewardship, delivery, end-to-end lineage, quality, data quality, published quality scores, and then letting the stewards refresh the schedules, their own self-service to role-based access for the data. All of that based on a series of 4 or 5 prompts to give me something other than a blank wall of how in the hell am I going to tie this back to something that's going to resonate with the business folks that just don't use the same language that we do. I was able to do that using my everyday AI. Now, again, am I going to use that exactly? No. It gives me something that it's not a blank slate. So what I'm saying is my everyday AI and how it ties to me as a data governance and data management professional is the idea that it gives me something that I can react to and then figure out a way to create a much more meaningful story and message that resonates with my business partners. That's what I want to do. We can talk until we're blue in the face about the different language and having the a business person needing to learn the data language. But we also have to understand is we got to meet them where they are too. And there are times where I will ask, hey, I don't understand how this particular thing works for, financial services or healthcare. Can you explain this using data language for me and how this kind of intersects with me as a data professional? Again, all of these things I have the ability to do. I could Google it very simply. But what my everyday AI is using these types of tools out there, it gives me the ability to connect and create a meaningful story fairly quickly. And then I know where to go search for. It is literally like having a personal expert on everything in your pocket at any given time. All of these things can be done via their mobile apps. All of these things can be done via a web page, which you can do either on your phone, a tablet, a computer, whatever. How should you use your everyday AI? Do you use everyday AI to create something like this? Now, that's what spurned this. And I'm going to take this water example and I'm going to utilize it every day, or I'm going to utilize it as I start to tell the story as it relates to how should we think about data moving forward? Things like, hey, data observability. Do we have that capability within our business to be able to do that? Because it looks like it would be very important to have. And if we don't, what do we have to do in order to get that? So again, I'm going to challenge all of you. If you're watching this and you made it all the way to the end, if you're on LinkedIn, ping me or something like that. Or if you're on YouTube, leave a comment, drop whatever. Tell me, what is your everyday AI? What are you doing for that? How are you telling your story? How are you utilizing AI to make not only your personal life better, but your professional life better? If you're watching this on your favorite podcasting application, again, 5 stars would be super, super nice of you. If you're watching on YouTube, do all of the YouTube things, like, share, subscribe, thumbs up, leave a comment below. This has been another Data with Peachey podcast episode. I will be back soon. I promise I won't take nearly as long of a break this time, but I will see you in the next episode.